Hello friends, how are you today? I hope you're having an amazing day. So today's story is about twins. Yes, we're going to talk about twins. Now, if you ask me personally, I have always been fascinated by twins, especially when it comes from an artistic perspective. You know, the idea of two people who appear exactly the same and it's impossible to tell them apart. It raises many interesting questions. And besides that, I also feel that they got something going on. I mean, just the way they look at each other, they give that eye, and it's like, oh, they put a spell on somebody. But let's get back to the story. The story today is about bad twins. Yes, they are bad, they are evil. The story revolves around Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah Whitehead. They are identical twin sisters and they were born on 20th November 1993 in Decatur, Georgia, which means they just had their birthday like a couple of months back. So, happy birthday, I guess. But Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah's mother, Jamaica Whitehead, she went by the name of Nikki. So we are gonna address her as Nikki throughout the story. Now Nikki was pretty young when she had the twins. She was like 17 or 18. And Nikki herself did not have a very pleasant childhood, rainbows and sunshine. No. Her childhood was unpleasant in the sense her mother was in jail when she gave birth to her daughter. And she was sort of contemplating the decision whether she wanted to raise Nikki, and obviously it was a big nay because she was preoccupied by being in jail. So she decided to give up her daughter's custody to her mother, Della Frazier. So Della Frazier is Nikki's grandmother who raised Nikki. When Nikki was 16 years old, it is said that she abandoned her grandmother's home. She flew away from home, and it was allegedly said that she loved to party, to drink, to dance, to go out, to have fun, and just do her own thing. So when Nikki had Jazz and Taz, the twins, she also decided to give up the custody of her daughters to Della Frazier. We talked about her earlier, the grandmother. So she decided to give the custody of her daughters to Della. Now, let's understand the timeline. Della is Linda's mother. Linda gave birth to Nikki, and Nikki had twins Jazz and Taz, and Nikki and Jazz and Taz were raised by Della Frazier. Okay, so I think you guys are with me on the same page. We are on the same page, okay? So Della was considered the girl's primary caretaker. And Nikki, she wasn't around that much. She used to come and go, and she really tried being an active participant in the girls' lives. But she was just seen like an older sister or a friend figure by the girls, not really the typical mother figure. And Della, she was really happy to have the twins in her life, and she really wanted to give them consistency, so she made them enroll in a bunch of after school activities like ballet and music lessons, and they were a part of Girl Scout. And Nikki, on the other hand, she tried to support the family financially so that Della wasn't overburdened with the, taking care of the girls. Nikki, she attended a cosmetology school and she ended up becoming a very successful stylist. She was a renowned stylist and was very good at her job. and she made sure that the girls were well taken care of too. So she's thinking about them, she hasn't forgotten them. And she made sure that the girls always had their hair done, they had high brand name clothing, and just pretty high end stuff. So it seemed like they were doing pretty well based off of materialistic things. And to top it up, the girls were really good at their studies too. They worked hard, they were perseverant, and it was known among the teachers and whatnot that the girls really studied hard and they were straight A students. So they were basically thriving. Everything seemed really great from the outside. It was proclaimed that Nikki was a free spirited woman. She liked to go out, as I told you, she liked to have fun, to drink, to dance, and she really liked guys. She really liked men. She had a great dating life. And you must be wondering, why is she mentioning this? I am mentioning this because she had like multiple lovers, which is a job in itself. But well, good for her. Yeah, not here to judge. Good for her. She had multiple lovers. It seemed like life was treating her pretty well. She was a good cosmetologist. She had multiple lovers. Things seemed great. So, when Nikki was 25 years old, she met a man named Robert Head. Now, Mr. Head was a long haul truck driver. And since he was a truck driver, he wasn't home much and he lived outside Converse, Georgia. Now it was said, now I don't know because I don't live there of course, but it was said that it was a great place for accommodation. If you want to bring your family around and stuff, raise your kids, it was a great place. It wasn't dominated by any sorts of crimes. And moreover, Robert and Nikki, they had an open or at least a semi-open relationship. So it was allegedly said. Now we don't know if this is the truth or not because I wasn't the witness. But it is said that Nikki, multiple lovers. So when Robert was at home, Nikki had him. And when he went to work, she allegedly had another boyfriend. Yeah, we are nobody to judge. And did I mention that Robert was 55 and Nikki was 25? Now, well, as I told you, I am nobody to judge, but that's like dating your father. Now, when Nikki turned 31, now at this time, her daughters, the teens, Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah, they were 13 years old, and that's when Robert told Nikki that he really wanted Nikki and the twins to live together at Georgia, Converse, and he really wanted to have a little family situation. And as Nikki grew up, her perspective completely changed. She wanted to be the primary caretaker, to the girls, and she no longer, went out as frequently, the partying stuff. She left all that. She was now becoming mature and she wanted to be an active part in the girls' lives, give them the upbringing that she never received. And so she was all on board. Then she talked about this with the girls, but no, they did not receive this well. The teens be teening really. So they did not receive this well and they resisted hard. They did not want to move with this Robert guy and especially with their mother. Why? Because I told you they just saw her as an older sister, a friend, an acquaintance. They never saw her as a mother. So they were like, you were never a part of our life and now out of nowhere you are just coming and asking us to move in. So they did not receive well, they resisted hard, but Nikki, she still followed through and so they moved at Robert's home in Converse, Georgia. Now it is allegedly claimed that the girl's behavior did a complete 180-degree around this time, around this move. Things just went wild with the twins, and their grades started slipping drastically. And this was astonishing because they were straight A students, and they became aggressive and their behavior turned violent. Now, Nikki, she noticed this change in their demeanor, and she put down some stringent rules, and these girls obviously did not receive this well. Since they were teens, this wasn't the right time for them to go through these drastic changes. And so they were becoming really violent, really aggressive with their behavior. And Nikki, she decided to step up to her role as a mother, and she put down some rules, regulations, guidelines that were to be followed, like no more staying out of the home late, no more partying with the boys, no more slipping of the grades. And the girls, they were like, she really wasn't there in our lives, and now out of all of a sudden she wants to be the so-called mother. They obviously did not receive this well. Nikki's friends were also questioned, and according to them, Nikki's change in parenting style was just a natural progression. As a parent, you just want your kids to do better than you did. She had the twins pretty early. She never had her mother around. She was raised by her grandmother. She did not want the same for her twins. She wanted them to do better. And she was providing for them, high-end stuff. Everything was provided. They just had to comply with what their mother was saying. Now again, I don't want to be biased and I don't want to completely side down with Nikki. We have to see both the sides. As teenagers, they did not deserve to go through all this cumbersome process. And Nikki, she was also right as a parent, because she did not want the girls to follow her footsteps, partying around, staying out with the boys. She was really scared. She wanted a bright future for her kids. So it's obviously understandable why she was acting this way. After the moving in situation, that the girl's behavior, which was earlier just, violent verbally, they started abusing Nikki physically. Yes, they abused their own mother physically. So for instance, whenever Nikki put down some rules or did something that they did not perceive well, they used to beat her. Yes, it's brutal, I know, but they used to beat their own mother. And Nikki, poor woman, she ended up calling 911 numerous times. And so she decided it was best that the girls were sent to the grandmother. Remember, Della Fresa? She believed it was best to send the girls back there so that they could calm down their temper and she could bring them back. So she did just that. But the evil twins, they registered this as, oh, so if I just behave violently and I just abuse my mom, we get to go back home, party. So they registered this as beating up their mom and then going back to home, that is their grandmother's home. Now I would also like to tell you, they were fond of the grandmother's home. Why? Because grandma was old. Granny is old. Granny cannot be around 24/7, and they were allowed to come and go as they wished. So obviously they liked their grandmother's home more, and so they registered it like this. And did I tell you that one of the twins, Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah, one of them was a biter. So she used to bit her mom. Yes, she used to bit her mom. At some point throughout this chaos, throughout this hot mess of a situation, Linda, Nikki's mother, she decides to chime in and, be a support system for her daughter. She motivates her, supports her to reclaim the custody of her kids. And now, since the kids were so abusive, they ended up in court and they were asked to attend court mandating family situations. So, over the course of 2 months, the family ended up attending 8 or 6 court mandated family counseling sessions where the counselors clearly said this family thrives in chaos and nobody is ready to take responsibility for the family crisis. This was clearly said by the counselors. Girls, they again end up with Nikki, and the registration, they continued the same process, beating Nikki up brutally, and she always called 911 for help. There was an instance, I saw a video of a police officer, she was a witness. So Nikki once called her and told her that she was being abused, brutally being bitten by her daughter. And so the police officer, she assured Nikki and she had a conversation with the girls where the girls seemed okay, they seemed calm, and they decided that they were not going to repeat what they did, and everybody went to their rooms. But the police officer, she was smart, she was intelligent, she saw that the girls were actually demonic, and so she decided to wait outside the home. She waited for about 5 minutes and she heard Nikki screaming and running outside the house, and the police officer came to her rescue. So this witness clearly shows that the girls were out of their mind and it was a hot mess, and so she sends them back to the grandmother. So they are just bouncing around, grandmother Nikki, grandmother, and Nikki is still continuously fighting for their custody. So it's a hot mess, it's a catastrophe, might I tell you, it's a catastrophe. So on the advice of one of the counselor, she said that since the teenagers' behavior at their grandma's home is also not rainbows and lollipops, it's best for them to stay with Nikki, as she was in a better situation to take care of the twins. And the girls ended up at their mother's house again. They were very unhappy, very, very unhappy. There was a turmoil that was building inside of them. They did not receive this news well. I'm telling you, it's not going to go smoothly. It's going to be bad. It's going to be bad. So, Nikki, what she does is, she's trying to double up, she's trying to take the situation in her hands, and so she decides to pull these teens out of their original high school. Yes, pulling the teens from their original high school where they have all their friends and putting them in a brand new high school. The girls were devastated. They were devastated. They did not take this well. This situation was going to take a total 360-degree turn, and Nikki, poor woman, wasn't aware. Nikki was really trying hard, to build a relationship with her daughters. So when they were coming over to their mother's house, she decided to have a welcome party. She invited a bunch of her friends and she just wanted it to be pleasant, convivial. So she decided to invite some of her friends. They decorated the entire house. But the girls, it seems that wherever these girls go, catastrophe seems to follow, earthquake, volcano, tornado, all that sort of situations. So, Tas, she became really violent. She started throwing food and she was shoving her aunt into the wall. So, the party obviously did not end up well, but what could Nikki do? She was really trying hard. I really pity Nikki, but she was trying hard. You get my point. She was really trying to get those girls to accept her as their mother. Now remember, they were living at Converse, Georgia, Robert's home, and Robert, long haul truck driver, so he was never at home. And so it was mother Nikki and her twin daughters Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah, and the tensions were very high. They were always high. This leads us to January 13th, 2010. So, a police officer was patrolling the area where these girls lived with their mother. I think he was patrolling for some other case. But when he was in his vehicle driving across Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah's house, out comes Tasmiyah. She's running. She comes out from the door and she's waving her hands at the police officer, trying to get his attention. And when the police officer he steps out from his vehicle, he notices that she's panicked and there's fear on her face. She's crying, she's wailing, she's screaming. There's a bunch of emotions that she's displaying. And so the police officer, curious, hey, I'm here to save the day. And he's like, tell me what's the matter. So she says that both the sisters, Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah, they arrived from school, and when they entered their home, they saw the home covered with blood. There was blood everywhere. And when they went inside, they saw their mother Nikki in the bathtub. She was covered in a pool of blood, and Nikki was dead. Now, when the deputy he enters the home, he says this on record. It's on record that the home was a complete horror show, covered with blood everywhere. And then he enters the master bathtub where he finds Nikki dead. And he also says on record, or maybe it was found out after her autopsy, that she was stabbed like 80 times. 80 times. She was stabbed 80 times, and there were obvious signs of struggle on her body. She was fighting hard for her life. She fought hard, and 80 times, when I saw 80 times, that's insanity. That's insanity. The girls, they were brought to the station for questioning, and their story went like this. So they woke up late for school, so they were in a rush. They saw their mother in the kitchen last, and they hurried to school. They completed attending their classes, and they came back home. So they had no idea what had happened back home. And they also further added that Nikki had multiple lovers, so the another boyfriend. So they said that Nikki was having a conversation with her boyfriend on the phone the night before she died, and they got into an heated argument. And they said that they eventually ended up the call with a breakup. So the two of them broke up. And so the girls were trying to indicate that maybe the boyfriend was the killer. I saw some interviews of the police officers and the girls, when they were being questioned. And the police officers, they looked visibly sad, and the girls, they were hysterical. They were crying, they were bawling their eyes out. And but what I observed and what many others observed was that the girls always had their mittens on. Now, what are mittens? Mittens are some gloves that the people usually remove and make themselves comfortable when they enter a sitting. But the girls, they always had their mittens on, and the police officers, they found this suspicious. Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah, some people are observant. So the police officers, they found this suspicious, and they asked the girls to remove the mittens. They are like, hey, can you please take off your mittens, I want to take a closer look of your hands. Now, as I told you, Nikki was stabbed 80 times and she fought hard. So it was obvious that whoever did it, the culprit, let's address it as he must have had some marks on his body too. So the police officers, they wanted to scrutinize the girl's hand based off of this finding. So they take a close look of their hands and they find scratches. okay, on the girl's hands, and they find bit marks. So the police, they're like, how did you get this? They ask the girls, how did you get this? They just, came up with a bunch of excuses, like the girls got into a fight, or they got into a fight at school, and they were swearing up and down that they had nothing to do with the murder, and they were completely oblivious of what had happened. Now, um, as Nikki was stabbed 80 times, it was obvious that it was a crime of passion. What's crime of passion? Crime of passion is something which is attempted by a person who is filled with extreme rage, extreme anger towards the victim. It's not a premeditated murder or a simple robbery where, the victim is accidentally killed. No. She was stabbed 80 times, which clearly showed that it was a crime of passion, and it was done by somebody who was, close to Nikki, a close acquaintance. When they looked deeper, they wanted to dig deeper, they found that Robert, Mr. Head, long haul truck driver, never at home. So he was never at home. And when Nikki was murdered, he was on road. The boyfriend, they reached out to him at his company, and he completely cooperated with the police 100%. He had them look and take a closer look at his body to find out if he had any scratch marks, and he was at his work when Nikki was murdered, so obviously both of them were not involved. I wonder who it is. Are those the violent, aggressive kids, the twins? You never know. So, Robert out of the picture. Boyfriend out of the picture. This leaves the police with the twins. So, they find a camera, around Robert's house, and there was a camera around the girls' school too. So, they extract the video footage, and what do they find? They find the twins, walking up to a car. It was a Dodge Avenger, and maybe it was their relative, some man they knew. He drops the twins at school, at around 10:15, and the twins, they got down from the car and they were seen walking into the school at around 10:15. School did not open until 7 or 8. So, it leaves us with a 2-hour gap between the twins being at home and leaving for school. So, what were you doing? What were the twins doing? What were they up to? They are brought again for questioning. The police, they get a search warrant, and they also want the dental records of the twins. One of them was a biter, so the police suspected that one of the twins bit their mom. So they searched the house, and after taking a closer look, they find out that whoever murdered Nikki, they tried to clean up the house, clean up the mess, the blood and everything, but they become overwhelmed at the sight of so much blood, and they give up halfway. But they did not find anything strong, conclusive, so they still search, and they find a big, breakthrough in the case. They find a vase. Now, this broken vase had, some DNA. They thought it might have some DNA, and it was covered with blood. So they send it to the team. The vase is looked after, and they find out the DNA of the twins, Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah, and Nikki's blood on the vase. This links the twins to the murder. Now I wonder if twins have the same DNA. Do they have same dental records? Well, yes, they do have same DNA. I came to know after this case, they do have same DNA. So the DNA belonged to Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah, but they still couldn't, make it out if Jas killed Nikki or Tas killed Nikki, but they at least had something strong now. So it takes the police around 4 months to gather evidence, and on May 10th, 2010, the girls they confess of murdering their own mother. Yes, both of them confess that they murdered Nikki, and their story went like this. They woke up late to school and they came downstairs. Nikki was in the kitchen, and she was annoyed about something. She was angry at them, and she said they should have, since they know they had to go school, they should have been awake on time. But the girls, obviously violent teenagers, they start lashing out at their mother, and Nikki, she is so annoyed that she takes the vase and she starts, waving it at Jazz or Taz, somebody, and she throws it at Taz, and this obviously did not went well, and Jasmiyah, she took a knife, she started stabbing her mother, and Tasmiyah then she also joined her sister, twin tendency, joining each other, friends, so they both attacked their mother. It's not funny, but it's very brutal. They both attacked her, and Nikki, she tried to escape. It was said that she came out of the house and somehow managed to step out of the house. She ran to a neighbor's house and she knocked at the door, but the neighbor was asleep and she thought some frantic might be outside, and so she did not come out to help. Had she stepped out, Nikki would have been alive. But Nikki, she ends up going back to the house, and the sisters, they stab her again, and they drag her to the bathtub. And when the twins were asked what their mother told them, her last words to them were that she hated them. I hate you. That's what she told the teenagers. And on record, the teenagers pretended that they were very sad and they did not want this to happen. They did not want their mother to die. But well, you never know the truth. I mean, you obviously saw the behavior of the twins throughout the story. They could have called the ambulance. They could have stopped with the stabbing, but no. They murdered their own mother. Jazz and Taz both pled guilty, and they were convicted on 3 different counts of voluntary manslaughter, falsification of government matters, and possession of knife in connection with a crime, and were sentenced 30 years in prison. It's sad that the mother, she lost her life, but these twins, they get to come out and live freely after 30 years. So this was the devastating story of Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah Whitehead.